This episode is brought to you by Absolute Landscapes. Absolute Landscapes is a landscape maintenance company that focuses heavily on commercial property maintenance. Call today for information about the services we provide and how we can best help you. 803-427-5944.
But yeah, man. So
Okay.
I'm excited. If you're ready,
Me
we'll
too.
roll.
I'm ready. Let's roll.
All right. So tell us about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What's going on with you?
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm excited for our conversation. My name is Mary Bell, and I'm an email marketer. I am also a consultant, and I also have a breathwork community online and in person. And so kind of a lot going on. And I'm a mom and a wife and a dog mom. So, I'm like one of those people who just can't have enough things to do.
Yeah, I see that. That is a lot going on, man. Okay, so we'll get into this other stuff, but I'm curious, man. Breath work. This is something I know very little about, and so like, when you say breath work, what is this? What does that even mean? I guess.
Yeah, that's a great question because there's probably hundreds of different types of breath work. And the first time I was ever exposed to it was about 15 years ago with breath of fire, which is like a very heated, very rapid breathwork technique. And I was kind of hooked on it from then. And I've been using breathwork for 15 years. And I just about a year ago actually got certified in a specific technique. And now I guide people through that specific technique. But yeah, breathwork is the thing I love about breathwork is that your breath is the only involuntary process in your body that you can override and control, right? Like we can't control blood flow. We can't control our heart rate unless it's through the breath. But the breath is a process in the body that happens naturally. It's happening in the background. It's happening involuntarily, and we can override that process and manipulate it for benefits to ourselves. And so I just think that that's really cool. It has very healing effects, which is another great thing I love about it because I'm also a Reiki master healer for the past 15 years. But with breath work, like people don't have to seek out a healer. They don't have to seek out somebody else to fix internal stuff, right? So it's like something you can do for yourself, by yourself, that brings out some healing. And I think that that's really powerful.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point, man. I never thought about that the breath is like the only thing we can kind of consciously control. I forget how you said it, but it was a good way you put it. And that makes a lot of sense. I've heard of people doing like, I don't know what you call this. It's like a series of three, I think it is three, like as deep of breath as you can possibly take, like just kind of like trying to fill your lungs. I don't know if this is the same kind of thing that you work with or not. And then I've heard Huberman. I don't know if you know who that is. Andrew Huberman. He talks a lot about I think he calls it a physiological sigh or something, where let me see if I got this correct here. You breathe in you breathe in however much you can breathe in, and then you like do another forceful inhale like after that, and then you breathe out. It's supposed to have like a relaxing effect. I think that's the way. I think it's in and then in again and then slowly out, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah. There's so many techniques out there, and I think most breathwork practices have the like calming effect or taking us out of fight or flight mode and turning on the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. But there's lots of different ways that you can manipulate the breath for like different benefits. Some breathwork practices are more energizing and some are more calming. So like some are really good for the morning or, before you go into a meeting and have to be on, or a networking event, you have to be on, while others are better for if you're ready to go to sleep, or maybe if you're not sleeping well and you do a certain practice at night before bed, you might sleep better. So yeah, some are more hyped up and energizing and some are more calming and relaxing. But yeah, different benefits to all different kinds of breathwork practices for sure.
Well, and I've noticed too, like just personally, that it's not just like a mental thing or like a maybe even a spiritual thing. Like I've noticed in the gym, if your breathing is not right, like you will see it will be like a significant difference. Like they say you're supposed to inhale on the, I guess what would it be? I don't know what the
Exhale
term.
on the exertion.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just say if you're benching, bench pressing, I guess you would inhale on down and then exhale on up. And
Yeah.
that makes a big difference, man. It really does make a big difference. But like one of the things, and I don't know if we've talked about this last time or not. One thing I do frequently, almost every day, is the ice bath, the cold plunge. And I've noticed that when I get in that thing, if I'm just conscious of my breath, is like almost the first thing that I do when I'm in there. Cause I don't know if you've ever been in cold water or not, if this is something you do, but like you get in that thing, dude. And the first thing you want to do is like stop breathing, but it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a reaction to cold water. You know what I mean? Like you just imagine, somebody, I don't know, you get in a shower or whatever and it's colder than you expected. It's just like, it takes your breath away. You know what I'm saying? But
Oh yeah.
but like you get into ice bath, man, and it's like that's the first. And I don't know if this is healthy or safe or not, but like I just kind of monitor my breath. That's the first thing I'm aware of, and then I'm just kind of, I guess, in the moment basically. But you hear that a lot though, because if somebody's in like a panic situation, which is kind of like what cold water is, because the adrenaline is pumping through your system, the first thing people tell people is to just like relax, not relax. That's the absolute, probably the last thing you want to tell somebody, but just kind of like, just maintain, monitor their breath. Like just be aware of the breath. And, and it's crazy how accurate that is, like how it really helps alleviate the situation almost. I mean, just being conscious of it.
Yeah. Um, oh, this is so interesting. And I love this topic because I've been doing cold therapies also for about 50, well, maybe not quite 15 years, probably about 13 years. But I started with cryotherapy. That was my first cold therapy that I ever experienced. And I remember thinking that was just the coldest thing. It was so hard to get through. Can't even believe it. And then I started doing cold water therapy, cold
Mm-hmm.
plunges and cold showers and all this. And I recently did cryo and I hadn't done it in a really long time. And I can't even believe how much colder cold plunges and cold showers are than
Mm-hmm.
cryo. Because when it was my first cold experience, I thought it was like the worst.
Yeah.
But now I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I have a friend, Michael Roviello, who he owns a couple like restorative and biohacking type facilities out in the Phoenix area. And he coached me through a cold plunge once. Actually, he's done it a couple times now. And his biggest thing is don't try and control anything. Like you can use the breath to help you relax into it. But as soon as you try to control your reaction to the cold, you're fighting. You're still fighting. And so using the breath to kind of let go and relax and just
Mm-hmm.
allow the process to happen, not fighting against this is cold. I have to, I don't like this. I want to fight it. Just being like, yeah, this is cold. It sucks for a minute. I'm going to breathe through it and I'm going to be okay is like an easier way to relax, I guess, right? Relax
Mm-hmm.
into the cold plunge. And so, yeah, I do use the breath, not even I don't even use a specific technique in the cold plunge, but I just try and focus on my breath and am I breathing? Like you said, when you first get in, it takes your breath away.
Yeah.
And so to even just find my breath, and while I'm finding my breath, allow the processes to happen, allow
Mm-hmm.
my body to hate this for a minute, allow my brain to go, this sucks, and just be like, yes, it does. And so what? It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have found that to be really powerful in getting through the pain or the resistance to it.
Right. Yeah. When I say kind of like monitoring the breath, I'm only talking about like the first 10 seconds or so, nothing crazy. Because I think it's actually pretty dangerous to combine cold therapy, cold water, like cold plunging and breath work simultaneously. I think that's kind of dangerous to do. But I'm just talking about like just this initial shock, you know what I mean? Getting my breath back. But then after that, man, I'm like, I usually try to do some sort of problem solving. Like I'll go through my schedule, or I'll go like through what I'm going to do the rest of the day. Sometimes I'll do like math problems, and I'm talking about like 3 or 4 digits times like 2 digits,
Oh my
just to work
gosh,
that.
that's awesome.
Yeah, just to work that problem solving like under that I guess that stress. You know what I mean? Like because I think a lot of times when people experience stress, and myself included, a lot of times depending on the level of stress, it's almost like our mind shuts down. You know what I mean? It's like I said earlier, some people just, it's like a different panic, like it's a spectrum of panic. And so I don't know, it's not just the physical and mental benefits, but I also see it as a training ground, like you can
Yeah.
train yourself how to react in certain situations. Um, and I've noticed too, like doing that way, man, it just, I feel like I'm a lot calmer. And I don't know if it's because, I'm just familiar with, the adrenaline, which I don't I don't really feel like I live a stressful life. You know what I mean? Like people ask me, they're like, "How are you doing all these things? You're not stressed out." I'm like, "I don't know, dude." But like, I don't really feel like I feel stress the way that other people do, and about things that other people do. If that makes sense. I mean, I get stressed out, but it's like I guess the reaction to it is different. I don't know, but I don't know. I just feel calmer like after consistently doing cold plunges. And the only thing I can think of is because you're familiar with that adrenaline being in your body. If something's not right, if something kind of stresses you out or worries you or whatever, you're just almost kind of familiar with that. That's the
Yeah,
only, and I could be
absolutely.
wrong about that, but that's what I mean. The physical recovery and the mental benefits and all that, the blood flow, the general health about it is one thing, but just the mind, like training your mind, which is like different from the mental stuff. I don't, when I say mental, I'm talking about the endorphins, the dopamine, and all that kind of stuff. But the mind part of it is like a whole nother thing that people don't. I mean, first of all, getting in that thing is a mental battle. Like
Oh yeah.
like getting in that thing is something you already overcome. This is what I try to tell people, man. Like I usually do it like 30 minutes after I wake up, and
Mm.
that makes the suck of it so much worse because like it's like I'm barely awake.
You just want to be
um,
cozy in the morning.
dude, it's like I haven't even had coffee yet, man. Like I am barely awake. But I tell you what, I'm awake when I got to that thing. Uh, but I'll tell you something else too that I've done recently. I've like maybe twice a week. I've tried to start doing this is taking a hot shower before you get
Mm.
in the cold plunge, and then get in, and then you have the fluctuation there. I think you're technically supposed to do it with a sauna, and I think technically you're supposed to do it like twice, like sauna, plunge. Um, but man, that combination of the hot shower, cold plunges is incredible. Um,
Oh yeah.
while we're on this
Uh,
topic, well, go ahead. I'll ask you. I'll ask you later.
well, I had two things I was thinking of. One is I used to be a trainer for high intensity interval training classes.
Mm-hmm.
And, the whole thing that you mentioned about the mental side of cold plunging happens in really physically exerting workouts too, right? It's like if you think you're uncomfortable in a workout, but you can get through it, any other kind of discomfort you're going to face in your day, difficult conversations or in the entrepreneur world, like you lose a client or your ads get shut down or something stressful happens and
Yep.
uncomfortable, you go, I can do anything because I've been really uncomfortable, when I'm working out, or I've
100%.
been really uncomfortable in the cold plunge. It makes you feel like you can handle anything. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's, so I think it definitely does have that effect. And then just to speak to the hot shower, cold shower, um, I do a lot of yoga too, and I take hot power flows. And so I recently said like my new favorite routine is hot power, cold shower. I
Hmm.
go take a hot power class under the infrared heat, whatever you call them, infrared heat panels, get super sweaty, and then come home and shock the body with the cold shower. And it's like amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it is like it's crazy. It's like a completely different thing. And I don't know, it's hard for me to decide. Like I can't decide if it's easier or harder after a hot shower because I mean, it sounds like it would be harder because your body is like warm, you know what I mean? And you're like going into, but I don't know, dude. I think it's like, I think initially getting in is not that bad, but like once you get out, it feels like way colder than it actually is, if that makes sense. So it's like
Oh
the
yeah.
initial part of it, I don't know. Um, but yeah, I was going to ask you, that's crazy you brought that up because I was going to ask you, like with your work and recovery and stuff, have you ever worked with like red light, like,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I,
So
I
I
was just gonna say
only just
I don't know how that like affects like tattoos. That's the only reason I haven't tried it yet because I
you
know
know I did
it penetrates the skin.
yeah, I never even thought about that. And my husband is the one who introduced me to like red light therapy and saunas and stuff. I had never done it until just about 2 months ago was my first red light sauna. Um, Mostly because for the last 5 years, I was either pregnant or nursing babies. So, like, I didn't want to exert or I didn't want to push my body to that level. I don't even think you can do it when you're pregnant, but even still, when I was breastfeeding, I just wanted to wait until everything was done. Um, but he's covered in tattoos and he isn't concerned. And I'm covered in tattoos too. And I just never even thought about it. So I hope it doesn't hurt them because I really enjoy it.
I think I don't know, man, because you can't get burned by red light, right? Like it's not like a sunburn or anything.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think it would. I just know that it penetrates your skin. Like it's a long wavelength light, and it penetrates your skin. And so, a tattoo doesn't sit on the outer surface of your skin. It's like on the dermis or whatever it is. And so, if that light penetrates, I don't know. That's the only thing. And then it's like, well, even if you put like sunscreen lotion or something on before you go in there, I don't think that's going to make a difference because it penetrates you know what I mean? It's like, it's not like UV light where it hits it and kind of bounces off. It penetrates the skin. So I don't even think it would matter if you did use, tanning lotion or like you put a shirt on or something. Um, I don't know, but I do want to try that because they say like, what's your experience with it? Do you feel like, have you seen a difference as far as like recovery or just general well-being with it? I mean,
So I've only tried it a couple times now. I think I've done it 3 times in the last like 2 months. But I want to do it a lot more.
mhm,
Different things I'm reading and different people I'm seeing talk about it. It's like I saw somebody sharing the other day, because I take a very natural approach to aging. Like
mhm,
I'm not doing any of the tweaks and poisons and stuff that people put in.
all right.
Um, but I do want to take care of my skin and, stay young looking for as long as I can. So I try and take the natural approach to whatever that is, drinking lots of water, using natural products on my skin, yada, yada, sunscreen, the whole nine. Um, and I recently saw somebody talking about um, that, like, he kept seeing these people in the sauna, in the infrared sauna, that were like in their 50s and 60s, and he could have sworn they were in their 30s,
Mm.
And I was like, maybe this is going to be my new anti-aging
Oh yeah.
approach.
I mean,
Yeah.
they
So I,
say like there's supposed to be so many bit like this is one of those other things too. First of all, like cold plunging, they say cold therapy, it tightens the skin, it reduces wrinkles, it's blood flow and all that kind of thing. But then it's like the red light therapy, man, is like it penetrates the skin first of all, so then it helps with like actually gets to your muscle fibers and things like that. And it can, I think the science behind it is, and don't quote me on this everybody, but I think the science is that it stimulates the stem cells production in the the muscles or whatever. But
oh,
it's
nice.
supposed to help with like collagen, and it's supposed to help like, reduce like acne or wrinkles or whatever. So I don't know, it seems to be like one of those I don't want to call it a biohacking, but that's kind of what it is. But it's almost like a miracle thing, like the red light
Yeah.
thing, because it penetrates through. I mean, you see people, and then like when you see athletes and stuff doing it, and then like the sauna and red light. I don't know the connection, but there's a connection to have both, like have those two combined. I mean, obviously a sauna is healthy and it's good, but like having the two, like the red light while you're in the heat of the sauna, I think is a thing. I've only been in one infrared sauna. The gym I go to has a sauna in it, a red light sauna, and I'm actually going to try that today, this afternoon. But
Oh, nice.
the sauna I went to before, man, was like a dry sauna, and I don't know if you've ever been in like what the one you've been in, but it was like hard to breathe in there. Like
Oh, yeah.
it was like
Yeah.
burning my nose, and it was a place that had a sauna, and we did like the sauna cold plunge back to back.
Oh,
But that was my
nice.
first experience with the sauna, and like living in South Carolina and like working outside and being outside kind of my whole life, I was like, okay, well, this is just heat. It's it's not going to be that big of a deal. But that thing was like we were in there for 10 minutes. I don't know what the temperature was, but it was just burning my nostrils. I felt like to be in there. Like I was
Oh
like,
my
damn,
gosh.
when are we
Yeah.
getting out of this thing, man?
That's the cool thing too about the infrared saunas that I've been in recently. They show you the temperature. I've never
Mhm.
seen the temperature on a dry sauna because usually the ones I've been in, like the thermostat is on the outside, I think. But anyway, so to see that you're sitting in 156 degrees Fahrenheit is like, oh man,
Yeah,
it's a little extra motivation. Like I'm a badass, you know?
yeah, yeah. No, I definitely want to try it out, man. But I mean, yeah, I think these are the things that people don't really like. I think cold plunging is starting to get more popular. I think saunas have been around for a little bit longer, but it's like these forms of recovery, man. I don't think they are aware that these things exist. I mean, I've been cold plunging for probably, I don't know, 7 months ish, 8 months maybe. And I will never, like, I will always support cold plunging for general health, well being, recovery. Once I start the red light, the only reason I haven't done the red light yet is those panels are pretty expensive if you buy
Yeah.
them like by yourself, for home
Hmm.
or whatever. But a lot of gyms have them. A lot of gyms have like either a red light, it's like a red light tanning bed, and then they have like a red light, what do they call it, I don't know, recovery bed or something that doesn't do the tanning. Then there's some that have the actual sauna with the red light involved in it. So but I mean, they're out there. You just have to, I think that the main thing is like this isn't something that's just like a red light bulb that you're just going to like plug in and get the red light. I mean, it doesn't work that way,
Right. Right.
although I think I am about to switch to red lights in my bathroom for the melatonin at night, because my bathroom lights are just way too bright for the last part of the day.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's funny because my kids have like this sound machine that's also a night light, and it even tells you on the instructions, like if you're trying to pick a color, if your kid really wants a actual night light on all night long, choose red because
Hmm.
it doesn't interrupt their sleep as much.
For sure, yeah. That's
Yeah.
another thing too, man. I've been starting to be aware of more recently is that the light. I think a lot of people, maybe they don't, but I hope a lot of people know about the early morning sunlight exposure, like to the eyes and to the skin, and how beneficial that is.
Yeah.
But also too, man, the late night exposure. I mean, you like your phone or your electronics, they had the blue light on them, and I got a setting now on my phone where it like turns the blue light off at a certain time, like it's got a filter or whatever on it.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
but yeah, man, just that light before bed, is something, because I've always said this, and I've said this on other podcasts before, and people are probably tired of hearing it by now. But I wish that somebody would have told me before I started this whole fitness thing, whatever, how important sleep was to
Mm,
to not only recovery but just general health and well being. And I don't mean like sleeping longer. I mean sleeping better. There's like a big
right.
difference in that. You know.
Well, and I think to your point about, cold plunging becoming more popular and biohacking and just recovery in general, I think it's all becoming more popular
Mm-hmm.
because we're starting to realize how unhealthy we've become.
Yep.
Even over the last 60 years, if you look at, like fitness classes in schools 50, 60, 70 years ago, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they were training hard. They were eating healthy. They were working out every day, and we've gotten so removed from that and so much more into convenience and accommodations
Mm-hmm.
and everything you can get at the click of a button. You don't even have to walk anywhere
Yep.
anymore. You don't even have to go outside and drive. Like everything can be delivered to your house. And so we're just, in my opinion, and I'm not talking about like stats I've seen, I'm just, from what I can see, we are at one of the unhealthiest moments in history.
For
And so I
sure.
think people are starting to wake up and realize how unhealthy we are, and they're looking for ways to feel better. I mean, you're not supposed to be achy and
Mm-hmm.
inflexible by 40, like
Right.
it's our normal now, but that's not normal. That's weird. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think people are starting to look for, especially looking to biohacking, because it seems like the easy shortcut. But it really has to be this well-rounded approach. Like, we have
Yep.
to just take better care of ourselves all the way around. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
speaking from experience, because I had some I ran into some health problems at the end of last year. And I'm even realizing that even for someone like me who thinks I live a healthy lifestyle, that there's a lot of room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm taking those steps now. But yeah, it just opened my eyes to how unhealthy we are as a population.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree. And this is sort of a what would you say? This is sort of a tender topic for me because it kind of irritates me the point of how if somebody doesn't know these things, that's one thing, and I want to get the awareness out there. I hope that this reaches the people that do not know. But there are people that know about this. I know guys in their 20s who want to supplement with testosterone, and I don't mean testosterone replacement. Uh, I mean anabolic steroids.
Mm.
And these people don't even work out. The only reason they want to do this is to gain strength and muscle. I guess without the effort. I don't even know if it works that way. I don't even know if you can just inject testosterone and you just. I mean, I'm sure that you get stronger, but as far as building muscle, I don't know. But it's like this. It's almost like a mindset of this immediate gratification, this everything right now, this take a pill, take an injection to, flip this switch and we just get whatever it is that we want. And it's like there's no effort in that, man. There's no hard work in that. You mentioned something earlier, which is a really good point that I wanted to come back to eventually. The cold plunging, like teaching you to do the hard thing. If you do whatever it is for you, I mean, whatever it is, I'm not saying everybody has to go out and do. First of all, I was working out 2.5 years, yeah, probably 2.5 years before I even got into the cold plunging, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not saying that this has to be that for you, but whatever it is for a person, if it's a workout, if you tell yourself you're going to wake up, tomorrow morning, you're going to walk 10 minutes on the treadmill, and that's your wall to get through. That's your battle to get through. That's fine, because when you do that, you're going to teach yourself. First of all, there's several things going on simultaneously. First of all, you're teaching yourself that you can trust yourself, you can depend on yourself, you can rely on yourself. Because when you set a goal with yourself, you're following through with that. But then it's like you said, you're taking, especially if it's first thing in the morning, you're taking that early morning battle and you're winning that. Okay, so then like with you or me or whoever else, entrepreneurs, if I think you said you're a mom and a wife and you got all these things going on. When you experience something throughout the day, which in these positions that we're all in, we probably will, how to react because you overcame that thing first thing in the morning. And it's like, there is no pill or supplement or hack that's going to like teach you that the way that you can basically train yourself to do that. And it really irritates me, man, especially I know I kind of, it seems like I kind of give social media a bad rap. It seems like I'm always degrading social media. I think social media can be great if it's used the right way. One of the things I don't like about social media is it's made it seem like things like entrepreneurship is an overnight thing, or
Mm.
health and fitness is an overnight thing. Like, these things are not overnight things. They're like, nobody. I don't care what nobody tells you. Nobody is an overnight success. Like, yeah, you see the guy and he's got the nice car and he's got all this kind of stuff, but he's not. I mean, maybe he is, but he's probably not in that specific social media post. He's probably not explaining to you the 10 plus years before that it took to get to that point. And then the problem with that is that people see this, and if they try to do this thing, if they try entrepreneurship or whatever it is, like, they try it for a couple of weeks and then, oh, it's not working out, must not be for them. It's like, no, dude, these things take time. Whatever. What I'm trying to say is there's no supplement, there's no pill, there's no quick fix. And this is like it's like a cultural thing. I feel like this, like, we just, like you said, everything is the click of the, like, we can just get on the phone and we scroll with our thumb and we got food delivered to our door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And while I appreciate that, I appreciate technology. People are busy. Anything that can make your life easier, I get it, man. But at the same time, we have to ask ourselves, at what point is the technology using us instead of us using the technology? At what point, if we continue to rely on these things, what's the movie? I know you said, I don't know how old your children are, and I guess want to ask you publicly here, but I don't know if you've seen the movie, the cartoon. Is it Wally?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
you know how the people are just kind of like floating around in these chairs and they have like a screen, and it's like, I think even in the movie it shows how their bone structure has sort of degraded because they're not using it, they're not walking around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I understand that maybe that's a cartoon, it's a movie, it's an exaggeration, but like, there's how much truth is involved in that, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean even I'm thinking out loud, even to myself, like I'm thinking my phone has autocorrect. Like it will,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm typing something, it will correct the word or whatever if I misspell it. Dude, I don't even know if I have complete confidence if I go write something out, my spelling is probably going to be all jacked up just because I'm so used to that thing,
I mean, think about, okay, so this is a really interesting conversation for me because I'm also a sociologist by education. I have my PhD in sociology, and this is all very sociological conversations. Even thinking about how technology has changed our language,
Mm,
like TTYL, talk to you later, LOL, laugh out loud. Like if I say JK or LOL or any of these little acronyms, most
mm-hmm,
people know what I'm saying. And so the technology, which we're using to be more convenient and speed things up and communicate more efficiently and any time of day we want, we've created shortcuts to language. And
mm-hmm.
so, yeah, not only can your phone or even your computer autocorrect your misspellings, and so maybe we lose sight of how to spell things, but we're not even spelling out full words anymore.
Yep.
We're creating acronyms for full sentences and understanding that. So it's like, oh yeah, it's wild what is happening. And like you said, with the instant gratification, like, so when people do have health goals, business goals. And like you said, if it's not happening right away, they give up or they feel like they've failed because we're used to getting things as soon as we tap a button,
Mm-hmm.
which is why in marketing, right? I'm a copywriter. In marketing, we talk about pushing the easy button and, effortless results and all this kind of stuff because that's what people crave. It's
Mm-hmm.
what they've become accustomed to and it's what they crave. And
Yep.
so, like you were saying, um, if people don't know this information, that's one thing and you're helping share. But when people do know this information, I think sometimes people just don't even know, like we're so wrapped up in our own culture and this is what the culture has become that it's hard to even think back to, well, what do I do instead? And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm even challenging myself of like, if I do need to go order something from Amazon, do I really need it tonight or tomorrow? Or can I afford to go to the store and go get it and be out in the sun, in the vitamin D, and interact with other human beings? Like we are missing out on so much, which is why people are extremely anxious these days. They are extremely introverted. They're extremely awkward. And, COVID didn't help all that because we were forced to social distance and separate ourselves and hide and be inside.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but even, and all the technology that came out of COVID, curbside pickups and grocery deliveries and restaurants who never used to deliver food, all deliver food now. Like,
Yep.
so even a pandemic like that can change technology, which changes our culture, which changes our own physiology. Like people
Mm-hmm.
get anxious going to a grocery store and having to wait in line behind other people. And they get stressed out and flustered and irritated and like it's wild. And it's
And
happened so fast.
and they are willing to pay twice as much to have it delivered, have somebody pick it up and deliver it to them. And I do not understand how people can be in their house all day long and they don't go anywhere. They don't do anything. They don't interact with it. I would go crazy if I was at my house that long. Like if I was in an enclosed space, not interacting with people, and I don't mean like interacting virtually, although that's cool and everything. But I mean like interacting with people, like, you know, being around people, saying hello, saying what's up. But I don't see how people do it. I don't see how people do that. You mentioned about we were talking about entrepreneurship and you know this immediate gratification thing, and that's something that's kind of too going into the job market these days, is because people, I think a lot of times they feel I don't want to use the word that I want to use, but for lack of a better word, entitled. It's almost like they're entitled to a position or a role or whatever. It's like I think some people think that just because they want a thing, they should get it. And there's like this immediate gratification, this flipping a switch, taking a pill type mentality is kind of bleeding into everything else. Something else too, man. I've tried to say for the longest time now, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a service or a business or whatever, I think you would be really kind of hurting yourself if you did not focus on expedience. Like if you did not put that as like your main, like, how easy is it for people to buy your product or service? Because I think if you can incorporate that into your plan, that's already going to eliminate the competition. Like, for example, not eliminate or make it, you know, easier for people to work with you. For example, I own a landscaping company. Okay. So like, there's like, you know, AI is involved in everything, but like the things that we do, we're probably decades away, if ever, from this ever being an automated thing. So like we still need to interact with people. We have to go physically onto the site and do this kind of thing. And so like one thing I've tried to just kind of be aware of over the past couple of years is like, how easy is it for people to do business with me? You know, like what kind of problem am I solving for this person? Like how am I helping make this person's life easier? Because I think a lot of times, and especially for entrepreneurs, man, it's not like you're selling a product or service, although you are. It's like you're like a problem solver for this person. You know, like how easy or difficult is their life because they're using your product or service. You know, because I can tell you this, Amazon, man, I think this is why I think Amazon is like completely taking over this market. If I'm not mistaken, there are, like, you hit two buttons on Amazon and your package is on the way.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if you go to, you know, if you just say you're buying a pair of shoes or whatever, you go to the manufacturer's website, you have to go pick out the shoes, then you have to put in your address, then you have to put in what, and then you know, credit card information, all that kind of stuff. There's like 4 or 5 different steps. Amazon, it's boom, boom, and it's on the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like this, it's this expedience. So I think if we're gonna, you know, have a business and do this kind of thing, I think it just makes sense to just capitalize on that and adapt to that. Which I think adaptation is like, as entrepreneurs, it's like the main thing that we should kind of like not focus on, but incorporate, because you see like the inability to adapt is like how companies like Blockbuster basically went out of business. You know, Netflix was, this whole streaming thing was coming in, and Blockbuster for whatever reason didn't kind of adapt, and then, you know, is now streaming is the thing. Like there's nobody probably, I don't even know if there is a video rental store anymore. You know, it's probably all just streaming.
I know. Yeah.
So, but I don't know, man. It's just this is such a crazy thing. I didn't realize you were educated in sociology though. This is kind of fascinating because I'm actually now being able to talk to somebody who's kind of aware and educated about this thing. And it's just like, I mean, where does this go? Like, how do we balance, you know, having amazing technology that we can use and help our life, make it easier, but like also not losing our, you know, humanity, basically, like what makes us like people, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a crazy thing.
Yeah. And I think like how we started the conversation with breath work and these recovery things and slowing down and calming down is one of the answers, because and even just the connection and community with breath work and like coming together to practice these things, because you know, I had gotten in the habit of waking up and looking at my phone. And I thought, okay, even as a challenge, even as like a micro habit challenge, can I not look at my phone until after I've dropped my kids off at school? So now my morning routine is, I don't start with any stress of like, oh, did I get a certain email that I have to jump on? Or did a client message me that I have to jump on? Or a team member messaged me and they need something from me. Like, I'm no longer starting my morning with like self-imposing some stress and anxiety on myself, right? It's like,
Right.
there's no reason all of that can't wait until 9 a.m. when I get on my computer, right? So we have to, especially because of the dopamine hits that we get from picking up the phone and seeing notifications and likes and all of this, or checking your email and your package is on its way, like little dopamine hit there. So we have to find dopamine hits elsewhere. And so is it now like my daughter comes in my room and wants to give me a hug, and like that's my first little dopamine hit of the day, not staring at a screen, um and then I think about, okay, so now I've got this solid routine in the morning where I don't look at it until it's work time. And then I look throughout the day, like, now can we expand that habit a little bit more? And so are there times when sometimes when I take my dog out in the backyard, I bring my phone with me so that he can do his business while I'm, I don't know, scrolling. But now it's like, okay, can I leave the phone in here, go outside and take my dog outside, let him do his business, and I can just look around me and listen to the birds and smell the beautiful fresh air. I smelled the rain the other day, and it was the most intense, amazing sensation of just, it reminded me of childhood. And so I think about, and I don't know how old you are, but I'm 40. And so I think about being a kid in the 80s and going outside and playing in the dirt and playing in the rain and smelling those things and just being way more attached to the earth and nature than we are today. And so can we find some of that? They seem like nostalgic things, which people enjoy. So like, can you go get some of your dopamine hits from those nostalgic moments when we didn't have screens and entertainment 24/7? And we had to be entertained and delighted by the beautiful trees and the squirrels and the, whatever else. And so like, I even find just little, I say challenges because we are so consumed, and this is the culture we've created from the technology that we have. And so it's hard to break away from that culture, but I think the benefits are amazing. And, it's also something as a mom that I'm trying to instill in my kids. So we do very limited screen time. They get a little bit, yes, but it's not constant. It's not all the time. We are outside exploring, going for walks in the wagon, like something reminiscent from my childhood. We do that. And even with the breath work, when my kids get upset, we have taught them, okay, take a breath, and it calms them down, right? They can tap into their own parasympathetic nervous system using their breath. And so now both of my girls know, and they're 2 and 4 years old, like they're young. And so the fact that they know to use their breath when they're getting upset or anxious or stressed out to help calm themselves, that is so rewarding to me.
Well, and it's like you said though too, because it's almost like this is a nostalgic thing that we have to get back to. But it's like I don't think this is something that I guess it is something we get back to, because so I'm 30, and I remember being out. When I was born in '93, so late '90s. I was out as a kid in the dirt or whatever, and it's like, first of all, grounding is a very real thing. So there's that. But it's like,
absolutely.
Man. But it's like we were out there, dude. We were dirty, and we every once in a while we'd fall and scrape a knee or whatever it was, and like this is just how it was. You know what I mean? But it's like now everything is just like on this little 2-inch by 5-inch screen or whatever it is. And it's like, so you mentioned about the hearing the birds and smelling the rain and that kind of thing. Like that is incredible because I don't want to get off on a tangent right here, but if you, I know you said that you've done like meditation and stuff like that. One of the best things I've ever heard, Eckhart Tolle, I think, has a book, it's The Power of Now. And he explains how everything is like a present moment. The past is just another present moment that you remember. The future is another present moment that you imagine. Everything is a present moment. This is all there is. And
absolutely,
like we get so consumed in our life, you know what I mean? Like, especially people like you and me who are busy, we got to have all these things going on. Like we get so consumed in our life. There's all these things happening that it's like everything, like every moment that is passing you is passing you. Like you can't get that moment back. And so like, I 100% agree, about taking time to kind of just, I don't want to say enjoy, but just experience the environment around you. I think one of the best decisions I've ever made is like setting a specific time to like respond to emails. Cause I used to, as soon as I got a message or a text or whatever, I would respond. And then that would be, and like, that is draining, man. That now I'll just have like a certain time. I'll go through bam, 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 and just, kind of move on with it. But having that a lot of time is really kind of help me out a lot. But I don't know, man. It's just, I don't want to say it's depressing because I feel like because there are good things about technology. Like, for podcast example, Spotify is a great, I love Spot. Like you can listen to an audiobook instead of sitting there and spending 10 hours reading a book. Although I do enjoy reading, I just don't have time for it. But you can kind of capitalize, you can maximize your time basically. And it's like, I think these things can help us if we use them instead of them using us. I think that's a big thing to be concerned about. But,
yeah, that's a great distinction.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, something else too, I speak a lot on like men's issues, and I talk to these guys about men's issues. And it's like this cheap, immediate dopamine, from whatever. I've had women actually tell me that they wish they would be approached in person versus, through social media or whatever it is by a man. Like if you're a man and you are attracted to a woman, go up and introduce yourself versus, through the social media thing. But that's something else too, because now there's dating apps. Like you can go on an app, you don't have to learn anything about how to introduce yourself, how to shake anybody's hand, how to say, hey, what, whatever. Like you don't have to learn those things because there's just an app and you swipe, and that's all it is. First of all, those apps have like their own problems to begin with, but beside that, you don't even you don't learn how to interact with people.
Yeah.
And I think, one thing, a message that I talk to a lot of guys about is like, a lot of men have this sort of, I don't know what you would say, this sort of desire to compete and like, this competition thing, this competitive thing. And it's like, well, where are you using that energy if you're not using it? Where are you using it? If it's not in the gym, if it's not to build a life for yourself or a career or whatever, like where is that energy going? What are you just wasting it scrolling, whatever it is, social media or whatever? I don't know, man. It's like I think the time that we're in right now is such a unique, well, crazy too, but also unique time that it's like like I said earlier, at what point do we get to a point of no return from this? Because like if you see back from the 1950s or whatever, it was completely different how I can't say people, but how a lot of men reacted to things. Like back then it was building a life and building a family and this kind of thing, and it's like now, I don't want to get off on this rabbit hole, but now it's like now there's a lot of guys who are, well, like I said earlier, the guys in their 20s who want to get on testosterone just because they want something now and immediate. And look, I know that testosterone has dropped significantly since 1950s, and that's because of the food that we eat. That's because of the lifestyles we have. That's because there's plastic and everything, and there's all these kind of things. I understand that. But that's not what this situation is. This situation is these people they think that if they inject something into their body, they're going to get the body that they want because it's almost like this mind virus, man. Now, the problem with that is its own problem. But the other side of that is if you are a person who actually wants to build and compete and do something with yourself, it's almost like, I don't want to say it's easy to be great, but like these people are taking the easy route. So if you take the hard route, like I don't know how else to say it other than like the range of the easy route and the hard route is so great. This like, for example, if you want to be a star employee at a company, it's probably not hard to do these days, man. Like if you go to work every single day, and if you do your job every single day, and if you are on time every single day, you are probably already well ahead of most people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that's the unfortunate truth, but that's how it is.
Yeah. And
I know you want to.
I'm hiring. And so, I feel that like it is hard to find, I never realized like as a copywriter, it's way more than just being good at copyright, like good at the skill. There's all the other things about being a responsive person and an attentive person and a hard worker and meeting deadlines and all of that that makes you so damn good at what you do. Like you don't realize how little effort people are putting in until you're like, oh, my client just praised me because I got the job done on time. Like that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
But I find your point about the men needing this competition, and if they're not getting that from anywhere in their life because they're just at home and doing everything on the phone and they'll either seek out some way to find that or they'll get depressed, right? And so we talked
Yep.
about people getting depressed or anxious or being even more socially awkward than ever because we're not getting some of these needs met, right? One of my clients, this is a new one for me even. One of my clients is a fitness and health and nutrition coach, right? She's got this amazing community of moms who she's helping. And one of them asked, like, I need some recipe ideas because my food isn't exciting enough. And, I need some excitement there. And one of the coaches kind of questioned back, like, your food doesn't have to be exciting. So can you find excitement somewhere else? Like, can you have this healthy diet where you're sticking to a routine and you're staying on, you're eating healthy and get excitement and variety somewhere else? And so even that shift has made me realize like, oh my gosh, if I think my meals are boring, it probably just means I'm bored somewhere else. And so what can I do to feed that boredom or get more excited about life? It doesn't have to be with food. It can be with something else, right? And I found that really eye-opening because I just never really thought about that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man. I never thought about it that way either. I know one thing I say on that subject is like it's like the process. Like people, we get. I know it's important to have goals and it's important to have an end goal and where you want to be, but like the process, man. If you can become the person who is like committed to the process, if you want to be a healthy person and a fit person and you have a diet routine and all this kind of stuff, or if you want to be an entrepreneur or whatever, like if you can commit to the process, that's to me, in my experience, that's what makes it easier to be consistent because it's like, yeah, the end goal can motivate you, but I don't really believe in motivation. I mean, motivation comes and goes. If you depend on motivation, you're not going to do a whole lot because you probably don't feel motivated a lot of the time. But if you can be disciplined to be committed to the process, that's what's going to keep you consistent. And the process, of course, is what's going to get you to whatever end goal that it is. And so, like one thing my girlfriend gives me a hard time about this because she's like, you can literally eat the same like 10 meals on a cycle over and over. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly right. Like I can definitely do that. Like I'll give myself one cheat day a week where I, eat whatever. And then like if I eat like chicken and broccoli the rest of the 6 days, like that's kind of what it is because I enjoy just as just me personally, I enjoy the process of a thing. Like, whether it's the fitness, this is one thing I think why it's like I don't really have a fitness goal other than just to like to be a fit person, but it's like the process, man. It's like being in the gym and overcoming that. And then it's like, I have with the entrepreneurship thing, I have goals for that, but it's like the process. One thing that I've noticed, and I'm sure you've seen this too about entrepreneurship is like, or anything difficult really, but there are things that are going to come around and test how bad you really want this thing. Like, and if you don't, if you don't have some sort of solid grounding on when those things come, like it's going to knock you in the mouth, man. And you might give up, but it's like, if you're consistent to the process, if you're like, okay, these things happen, these hurdles happen. Like this is part of the thing that I'm trying to do. If you can commit to that, and if you, another thing I tell people too is like, don't just be the person that gets over problems, be the person that can handle problems. Because then when problems happen, like you handling that is just part of who you are. Because if we spend like, especially like a person like you or me, or somebody who has a lot of things going on simultaneously, problems happen. And if we just try to focus on getting through the problem, we're going to feel like that's all you're ever doing is trying to get through a problem. But if you can just handle it in whatever way that is, condition yourself through the fitness or the cold plunging or whatever, if you can just be the person that does hard things, then that's just part of who you are. And that's part of the process on whatever it is that you're trying to get to. I'm sure with your education, first of all, that's a huge thing right there. This difficult, that a lot of people can't. I don't know how people do it, because it was hard for me to get through the first 12 years of school. Like,
oh man,
it was hard for me to get through high school.
Yeah, it's so hard. And when people are like, "Oh, you have your PhD," I've thought about going back to get my PhD, and I'm like, you have to really, really love it and be committed to it, because
Yep.
it's not fun all the time. It's hard, and it's a mental game too. Like just like business. I feel like business is very mental, and school is that way too. It's the mental game, and like you said, the discipline. When the excitement, the motivation wears off about earning that degree, like, are you still going to do the work and get it done and keep going? Because there are going to be times when you're like, I don't know if I should be doing this. I don't want to do this anymore. Which you can quit. That's fine. You don't have to finish, but like, I don't know. It's a mental and time and dedication investment.
For sure. Listen, we are well over the promised break.
Okay.
Let's take a break really quick, and we'll get. I want to get into that with you about the entrepreneurship and the just kind of these things that you've overcome. But let's take a quick break really quick.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So meditation. We were talking about. Man, I used to meditate a lot. I used to meditate like probably almost 4 times a week, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. And I was up to the point where I was doing like between 5 or 10 minutes, which like doesn't sound like a lot, but I know that's a lot for like But like my problem was, I felt like if I had a thought or something come in, like if I thought something that I had to kind of restart, or that like messed the whole process up or whatever. But then like people told me, no, you should just like let that thought kind of, I guess maybe like pass or exist or whatever. Just don't become attached to it. Don't follow it or whatever. I don't know. Meditation is like a very unique thing, but it's like I was saying in the break, there's few things. I think journaling probably comes close, but there's few things that like I think gives the mental clarity that meditation does.
I think what you shared is such a relatable experience. Even the first time I was ever exposed to meditation I was probably 13 or 14 years old, and my brother was into meditation. And so he was meditating, and I started asking him questions about it. I'm like, what is it? What are you doing? You're just sitting there with your eyes closed. And the way he described it to me was like clearing his mind of the thoughts and just finding stillness and silence. And so for the longest time, I thought I couldn't meditate because that did not happen. And so when people tell me that, like, I can't meditate or I'm not good at meditating, I'm like, wait. We need to talk about what meditation is, because there's so many forms. And even when you are getting in the cold plunge, that's a form of meditation. When you are in the infrared sauna, that's a form of meditation. I listen to a lot of guided meditations and affirmation meditations to where I'm not silencing the mind. I am listening and oftentimes repeating in my mind what's being said. And so that's not silent at all. One of my favorite meditations that helped me get through that idea that like it had to be silent, it kind of bridged this it needs to be silent, but I have a hard time being silent for me, was a meditation called Ananda Mandala. You can find it on YouTube. Ananda Mandala translates to like blissful chakra meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And the meditation counts, and you breathe to the counts. So the whole meditation is like 1, 2, 1, 2. And you're inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. And this was the first time, like experiencing that meditation was the first time I found a meditation that almost like did the thinking for me. And there was only one thing I could focus on: listening to the counting and breathing to the counting. And so my mind didn't have time to go, oh, what am I going to make for dinner? And oh, what did I forget to do? And oh, that's due tomorrow. There's no time to think about all of that because I'm focused on 1, 2, 1, 2. And so that meditation was sort of my gateway to, oh, there is so much more to this. And when people tell me they can't meditate, like that's a great one. But also just getting over the idea that meditation has to look or feel a certain way. There's so many different types of meditation that you can do. And so find one that works for you. If a silent meditation works for you, that's great. Do that. If you need a guided meditation, do that. Even a walk in nature, and like we talked about grounding and earthing, that can be a meditation practice. Journaling can be a meditation practice, like you mentioned. So there's just so many different types that if people don't meditate and they want to get into it, but they're afraid they're not going to be good at it, just trust. Go find a bunch of different options and try them out and see what feels good. Because there's just so much out there that you can try.
Yeah, I've heard kind of that before, that there's so many different types of meditation. I think with me, like the thing I try to do was basically, and I learned this from Eckhart Tolle from his book, The Power of Now, but I basically tried to remind myself and just experience the fact that the person that, or whatever, the being or whatever that thinks, whatever it is in our mind that thinks, and the being that is aware of that are like separate things. So like all these things that I think are me, I guess a lot of people would label that as the ego. These whatever it is that I think I have, these thoughts or these, desires or these goals or whatever, this ego is like separate from the part of me, the being that is like aware of this. So it's like, and this is something I asked somebody one time. I was like, are you the person that does the thinking, or are you the person that is aware of that thinking happening? And it was crazy to ask him this, because it like blew his mind when I said this. But it's like, I I think that's I think this kind of leads into like a spirituality talk, but it's like who we are, like our soul or spirit, or like just our higher self, or whatever it is you want to call it. It's like this is separate from like all these external things going on that we're worried about, the bill or the goal or the, whatever it is. Like these things are external, and like who we are, it's hard for me to wrap my brain. This makes my head hurt talking about this, dude, because it's such a concept to like grasp. It's almost like I can't fully grasp this concept, but it's like who we are internally, like who we truly are, like down to our core, is like different from the shell and the life that's like outside, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I know this is like very like this is very like far out talk, and I promised I have not smoked pot in years, and I'm not like I'm not saying this is what this is, but it's just like, and I maybe I'm not even explaining this properly, but like I know it in my mind. I'm just trying to verbalize like what it is. Eckhart Tolle puts this perfectly. He's got an exercise in his book that he goes through, and he teaches you how to be aware of this. But it's like that awareness, man, is just like, there's been several times where I've referenced back to that, and it helps me with things like like being reactive. You know, if somebody says something to you and it's like, okay, well, where's this coming from? This has nothing to do with who I am. This person has things going on. Probably they had a bad morning, whatever. Which I think, to go off on a little side tangent for a minute, I think that's a very, like, I have seen with my own eyes people who are in the corporate world who their boss says something to them and they said something to this person because somebody said something to them because somebody probably said something. And so it's just like this projection domino effect, basically. Like everybody just projects and projects and projects, and then it gets down to whoever it ends up as, whoever's the last person on the list. But it's like these people say something to other people because they internalize it, and then that person passes it along. And it's like, at what point can you become the person that's like in the middle of that mix and say, okay, well, I'm going to be the barrier here that stops this. Like, I'm not going to project this on other people. I think that's one of the things that, like, good leaders, or I can't speak for women, and I'm not a father also. So I think, like, good leaders are people that are in a place of, like, influence with other people. I guess you could say maybe fathers fall into this role. Again, I don't want to speak for women, but I think this is one thing that makes those people good in those roles, is the ability to be able to protect those that they lead or care for or whatever from these things. You know, so it's like, if I don't know how else to say it other than, if I'm in a position where I lead somebody and they're following me and they depend on me, okay, well, if something happens and I project it to this person, I mean, even with like an intimate relationship or whoever it is that you spend a lot of time with, you project this to this person. That to me is not a quality of a good leader. You know, you should be able to, I don't want to say filter out, but you should be able to filter out, like, if it's a message that needs to get to this person, I mean, there's a way you can do it. Anyway, whatever. That's a whole nother side point. But yeah, so it's the meditation. It's like just being aware of, like, who we are internally and who we are at our core is, like, different from the outside version of us that, like, experiences the world. Am I making sense? Because I feel like this is like a far out concept.
Oh no, if yeah, I got some mind bending beliefs of my own. So like, this is not strange to me at all. But this is one of the biggest reasons that I'm such an advocate for solving problems internally, because what you're experiencing externally is not, it's only real because of your inner world. Like, your external world is a reflection of what's happening internally. And so, you know, even you talking about, like, passing it down from one person to the next, and then it hits the last guy, it only hits you in a certain way depending on where you are internally. And I have an example of this. I was traveling with a girlfriend of mine. We were on a business trip, and somebody at the airport said something to us. And we walked away from that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't interpret any sass or rudeness or judgment. And my friend was like, "That guy was so rude. Can you believe he said that?" And I was like, "Wait, did he said what? Did I miss something?" And she reiterated what he said. And I'm like, "Yeah, I heard that too, but I thought he was being helpful." You know, so like, the same person said the same thing to both of us. And because of what's happening internally in me and what's happening internally in her, it felt different. We received it different. We perceived it different. And so it's not at all having to do with what happened externally. It's only what happened internally that has real consequences on how we're experiencing life. You know, so I think that like is the perfect visual of everything you just said.
100%. 100%. So there's an African proverb that says, when there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm.
Oh,
And
yes, that's so good.
this is why I try to explain to people, man. Like, it sounds arrogant and it sounds selfish and it sounds like you don't care what other people think about you. But if you are grounded in who you are, whatever that is for you, like who you are, if you know who you are, if you know your weaknesses, and here's the hard part, like you have to be honest with yourself and know your weaknesses, where you need to improve, your strengths, all that kind of stuff. If you know who you are and where you are, what really can somebody say to you that's like this gonna bother you to the point that you don't already know? You know, it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen when I was a kid, we talked about the early 90s. When I was a kid, I was a huge Eminem fan. So I don't know if you've
Oh,
seen the movie 8 Mile, you know,
oh
when
yeah.
he's the last battle, when he just kind of puts everything out on the table. Like, how could the guy really come at him after he's put everything out there? You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with yourself. Like, if you know who you are, if you know where you're at, if you're grounded in, okay, these are my pros, I guess. These are kind of the areas I need to improve on. This is what I did. Like, this is who I am. What really can somebody say to you? And you mentioned the example about the airport. I don't use that specific example, but the example I use is like a coffee shop. You go to a coffee shop, you go somewhere, and somebody's rude, somebody cuts you off in traffic or whatever. If you're not grounded internally with who you are, you're going to internalize that, and basically the world is going to dictate for you who you are.
Mm.
Versus going back to what we talked about earlier, the fitness, the cold plunge, the whatever routine that you have that's difficult. If you do these things, you build trust with yourself. First of all, that's how I think that's how you build confidence. You do the things, you keep the goals that you have for yourself. You maintain consistency and discipline. You learn to trust yourself. And I mean, that's almost verbatim what self-confidence is. So that's how you build the self-confidence. You get to that point, you're able to then look back and say, okay, I trust myself, because when I tell myself I'm going to do something, I make an agreement with myself. I stick to that. So now, like, you're in a coffee shop or whatever, somebody says something to you. It's like, okay, you know, does this person have a point? Yes or no? Okay, well, did I say something or do something to them to make them say this, or did they just kind of like react this way for no apparent reason? And if that's the case, then there's probably something internally with them that has nothing to do with you. But the problem is that people are not grounded, and they see this, they experience this, and then they do internalize it. And I mean, it's like a very simple thing when you break this down, man. If you're not grounded in who you are, and confident in who you are, and these things happen, the world decides for you who you're going to be, because your reaction is based on what the outside world says. I mean, and you can take this, and once we have this sort of philosophy figured out, you can take this and apply it to any area in life, and you can understand that, like, we talked about overcoming adversity and hardships earlier. If you don't have a concrete form of self-identity, and something happens to you, something comes along and tests you, you're not going to know how to respond, because you don't even know who you are. Because, like, you
Mm.
like, if it, so in other words, if you have, let's just say you're a person that when something happens, if something bad happens to you, you respond in this specific way. This is who you, because this is who you are. Like, this is how you do. So if, I don't know, for like, let's say that you have a business and you have to meet a certain deadline or whatever. Something comes along to test that, and you say, okay, well, that changes how I'm going to get there, but I'm still going to get there because this is who I am. If you know that, man, and like adversity comes along and something comes along to test you, you know how to respond because you know who you are. And this is, but I think the problem, I think what keeps a lot of us away from this is that honesty with ourselves, you know, like, because nobody wants to, this is why, man, the whole personal growth and self-improvement space is like, so you either love it, like you love the content, or you hate it, because
Mm.
nobody wants to hear how they can improve themselves, because that's an uncomfortable conversation. That's like, people don't want to look deep. People have, you know, I think a lot of us have trauma and damage that we're not even aware of, you know, until something happens.
Oh yeah.
More than likely an intimate relationship, because I've had a couple relationship coaches on here, and they've all reiterated. I mean, they have different things they say, but one of the main points that everybody seems to agree on is that intimate relationships are a mirror for yourself. And so
Oh,
if you have some sort
absolutely.
of, damage or childhood trauma or something, you probably learn it from an intimate relationship, whether it's attachment style or, whatever. So I don't know. I think just knowing who you are, man, and knowing like where you are with yourself, I think that sort of, I don't want to say it protects you from the outside world, but it lets you know like where you're at when these things happen, versus,
Hmm.
the world living vicariously through you because you don't even know who you are yourself.
Absolutely. This is one of the biggest themes that comes up when I'm facilitating meditation or breathwork practices for people. And I will have them walk through and explore the parts of themselves that they're rejecting or judging. And then we reflect on where that comes from. Like, who else is judging that in you? Who rejected that from you to begin with? And you hear people say, like I had one woman say that when she was a child, her, I forget if it was her mom or her dad, but one of her parents, if she was talking, one of her parents would tell her to, like, shut up. You know, you don't have any opinion on this. Just keep your mouth shut, And she said her other parent would look at her from behind and be like, almost like an I'm sorry, but she learned from that parent, my voice doesn't matter. I need to shut my mouth. I need to be quiet. What I say isn't important or valuable. And so she shoves down this part of herself that wants to share opinions, that wants to speak her mind. And so through breath work, we're finding those little moments, and we're finding those parts of ourselves that we have rejected or closed off from the world, or that we're shoving down, and we find a way to love it anyway. No matter what somebody else told you, no matter how many other people rejected it for you. And I tell them, like, go find the part of you that people made fun of, and go love that part of yourself and start bringing it back. Start bringing it back, because we're here to be unique and beautiful in our own way. And if you shove all that uniqueness down and just try and be like everybody else just to fit in, you're not serving your life's purpose, And so that's a huge healing process that we go through when I'm guiding breath work or meditation, is like finding these aspects of ourselves that we have shut down, shoved down, told them to be quiet, and that's one part of it. And then oftentimes finding where it first came from is also helpful, because like you said, we don't even know sometimes where the trauma lies. And so finding it gives you your power back. Like, man, I was only 5 years old when that happened. Like, it makes sense that someone else, a parent or an adult, had that power over me. But now, like, I'm a grown woman. Nobody has that power over me. If I have an opinion, I can speak it. And if people want to listen, they can listen. And if they don't want to listen, that's fine. Like you said, it's not about being selfish or not caring what other people think. It's like, if you can get comfortable with the fact that you're not for everybody, then you will serve your purpose more fully and more authentically.
Sure.
And that's what you're here to do. Like,
Yeah.
Why would you hide from the world what you're here to share just because it makes somebody else uncomfortable?
Absolutely.
We're not doing that.
And I mean, you brought up a good point too, though, because like a lot of times, I don't think a lot of people are aware of, like, the things they believe or think about themselves is not even something they actually believe about themselves. Like, it was something that was given to them, whether it was unfortunately through a parent or through, some sort of institution, a school or whatever, peers, siblings, whatever it was. Like, a lot of the things in this situation are, in this space, a lot of these things that we think or believe about ourselves are not even something that we actually believe about ourselves. It's just something that we've heard at either a young age or long enough that we believe, that we think we believe these things about ourselves. But really, it's like, I guess it's familiar. It's we feel like that's how it's supposed to be. And I think
It's
this
conditioned. It's
exactly.
programming. And we talk
Exactly.
about that in sociology too. Like all of those primary institutions are what shaped your being, because all of those things were authorities over you, and they taught you what was expected and what the consequences were for not meeting those expectations. And so you become programmed and conditioned to be the way that you are. And so, yeah, it's not your fault, but now it's your responsibility to go back
Exactly.
and discover that and find it and love yourself fully, even if somebody else didn't love everything about you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love because if I were to say something about this, it would have been exactly what you said. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. It is your responsibility from this point to do whatever it is that you have to improve. And like, I think I've talked to a lot of people in my life about different things, and I'm almost convinced, man, that everybody has some sort of healing that has to be done.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, other people have greater degrees than some people, but I think everybody has something um, to heal from and to overcome. And I don't know. I mean, maybe that's part. Maybe that's part of like our well, it is part of our journey here, I think, to heal ourselves. And I don't think we can really give whatever it is that we are supposed to give to the world until we do that. You know, I mean, we might accomplish like great things in life. We might be great people and great parents and great spouses, but like to be the best we can actually be and to give ourselves fully and to live our purpose, whatever that is for the individual. I mean, I think that healing is part of that. Uh,
Oh, I
and
absolutely agree with that.
I'm not saying that I necessarily believe that we live past lives and that we've been reincarnated, because I believe that we have a soul. We are from a. I believe there's a God that has created everything. There's an omniscient being that's created everything. But if we have been reincarnated and we do live, you know, uh, consecutive lives here in this plane of existence, I think the thing that would make sense about that is we have something we have to do here before we move on to the next space. And, I mean, whatever that is, whether that's the healing, whether that's the contribution to the world or whatever, I mean, there's something here that we're supposed to do, and each person has to figure that out for themselves. But like, that would be what would make sense to me if reincarnation was a thing and we were reborn, so to speak, to accomplish this thing, because it only makes sense to me that we would be here however long it took, however many cycles of life it took to accomplish this thing and then move to the next level or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, um, I mean, that's the same philosophy I have, is like, we chose to be here in this lifetime to experience something and learn something and overcome whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you'll find, and there are places, if you're like, well, I don't know what that is for me, um, explore and do your research and do your own discovery. But I have found that like my birth number and astrology completely resonate with what my purpose is here. My birth number is 27. I'm a 279. And so I am here in this life to experience awakening,
Mm.
and to become enlightened. And according to astrology, I'm an Aries sun, Aries moon, Virgo rising, with my Chiron, like the thing that will constantly come up throughout my lifetime is self-worth. And so when something happens to me in a relationship, it comes back to healing my self-worth. When something
Mm.
happens to me in my health, it comes back to my self-worth. When something happens to me, and when I say happens to me, I mean like a challenge comes
Right.
up in my business, it comes back to self-worth. And I always think it's funny. I struggle to say that word,
Mm-hmm.
self-worth, which I think is also just like a really funny way that my higher self is showing me, like, you don't quite have it down yet. You are doing a
Mm-hmm.
great job and you're learning a lot, but like once you can actually say it, you'll be good.
Right. Do
But
you? I was just going to say, do you have a problem saying it because just the pronunciation of it, or does it trigger something internally with you, like an emotion almost? Because I would say the emotion part would be like a really powerful, I think that would be a really good sign that you're on the right track.
yeah, so and nobody's ever told me this. It's just what I know about other things. So like we know that sound, how do I even describe this? Like we know that sound vibrates, right? Like each sound vibrates with something.
Mm-hmm.
And so words are created from these sounds that represent vibrations. And so if you think about Sanskrit words or mantras, it's like when you verbalize the mantra, that vibration is running through your entire body. So I find even in yoga, when I learn the Sanskrit name of the pose and start to say it out loud, I can be physically better at the pose. And I think it's because I have reverberated the vibration of the name itself through my body. And so self-worth is a tricky word to say, but I also think that it has something to do with the way that phrase reverberates and the vibration that it carries. And I don't think like there will, maybe when you die, like maybe by the time I have fully filled that need or that fully healed that scar of the self-worth trauma, whatever it is, I'll be able to say it without a problem, without having to think about the word. Does that make sense?
Yeah, dude, my mind is blown because like I wanted you to finish, but like I'm fighting for my life over here, man, because I really wanted to interrupt. You said that when we say something, it vibrates through our entire body.
Yes.
And that is like, man, that is very profound because that first of all, that's true. And like, I'm a believer that, like what you say about yourself, it reinforces whatever it is that the thought is or the belief is.
Absolutely.
So this is why like negative self-talk is such a bad thing.
Yeah.
But
and that's why people use affirmations, right? The more you say it, the more you believe it.
Right.
And it's not just because it's a thought process. It's because the vibrations of that energy are flowing through your body. And our bodies are what, 80% water?
Something like
so
that.
if you think about dropping a pebble in the water and the water ripples, like when you put that vibration through your body over and over again, it is just rippling through the water in our bodies.
This is such a profound thing because I've never thought about this before. Like, you think about beliefs or you think about your environment or like, what you hear, or what you read or see or whatever, but you don't think about, you think about what you say, but you don't think about it going through your entire body as a vibration, because like, I guess with me, I don't know. I'm thinking like as I'm talking now that I'm aware of this, it's like, it's crazy. And I guess because I don't know if I have like a deep voice or like I can just feel my voice or, I'm talking into this microphone and I can hear myself in my headphones and it's like literally resonating with my entire body. Like I can feel like, I just feel energized. I don't know what it is. Like I just feel the vibrations, I guess. And this is it's such a profound thing to think. Because I've certainly never thought about your voice vibrating or the words that you say vibrating through your whole body.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, it makes sense because, you see like with pregnant women or whatever, they speak and then the child's born and then they react to the mother's voice as if they've heard it before because obviously they have. And so like, it just makes sense that it just kind of vibrate. Like it's crazy, man. Yeah, that's a good takeaway. That's a good takeaway from this. Geez, listen, I don't want to wrap this up, but I know you got to finish here in a couple minutes. I want to make sure we have time for this. Do you have something you want to promote, a social media or website or anything?
Sure. Yeah. So will they see my name on here?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, but that's how you can find me on social media is my full name. It's Mary Laske, which is Laske Bell. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. Just know that if you send me a friend request, please also DM me and tell me that you heard me on Cody's podcast, because I'm sure, as an entrepreneur, like you get tons of friend requests and I don't know where they're coming from and I don't always accept them unless I know. So yeah, connect with me and I do have an online breathwork community. And so if that's specifically what you're inquiring about, shoot me a DM and ask me for details.
Okay. And if you want to send me some links too, I can attach any links to the descriptions.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
so one last thing that I ask everybody: if you had to, what would you say is like one of the most important lessons that you've ever learned? Something that you would be comfortable sharing. It can be in professional life, personal life. If you're comfortable with sharing it, what would just be one of the? I know it's kind of hard to pinpoint, like maybe one, but just one of the most important lessons you've ever learned.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And yeah, there are many, but I think the one that I always come back to, and it kind of speaks to a lot of topics that we covered here today, and that is that nothing is permanent. And
Hmm.
so whether it's your health or your relationships or your business or the highs and the lows or the depression or whatever it is, even when it's high, even when it's good, remembering that it is not permanent makes you less attached. Like knowing that you cannot hang on to this moment forever, that you cannot hang on to this status forever, makes me feel more free when things are on the downside, or when I'm in the ebb, or when stuff is not going well, because I know this also is not permanent, and I'll always come back up, right? Um, and so, yeah, I think that just reflects a lot on pretty much everything we talked about today.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
and just letting go and easing into that, and being comfortable, right? We talked about getting uncomfortable, which makes you more comfortable in the uncomfortable moments of your life, is like
Hmm.
just knowing that it's not permanent. It's not permanent. It's not forever. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, that man. That's such a strong, powerful one. When I think about that, I think of also like you know appreciating those positives more when you know they're not permanent. You know,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean the attachment. I think the attachment thing is a big thing, but like just the appreciation. I think when you're, I think when just because I'm thinking of this as you're saying it, I think like I just would appreciate it more if I knew it was a not temporary, but just not permanent thing. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Gratitude for sure. And on the same like wavelength as that, people talk about finding the silver lining, but like in the times that don't feel so good,
Hmm.
is there something to be grateful for there too? Grateful for the lesson, or grateful for the challenge, or grateful just to be alive to experience that awful feeling. Because as humans, like, we are the only species who can feel the full spectrum of emotions. And so it's a joy and a gift to be able to feel it all. And so if you lean into that and really feel it all, and don't try and shove down or get away from anger, resentment, sadness, whatever the negative emotions are, um, you can experience joy by feeling it fully, no matter what it is.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
guess I gave you two.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say that's a strong one too, man. Just like learning to, if I had to like guess what most therapists, like the bulk of what most of their like I guess clients they work with, I would say a pretty large portion is like the ability to sit with whatever the emotion is. You know,
Yeah.
especially if it's a negative emotion, just like the ability to sit there with that and understand like it's uncomfortable. Like you've already said, it's not permanent, it's not going to last forever, but it is uncomfortable, and just kind of learning, to handle that and experience that, and to, I mean, I guess even appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you
Um,
said, you serve a lot of like a large male audience. And that's not something a lot of men are taught or praised for as kids. And so I'm
hmm,
sure adult men have to really listen to that and realize, like, it's okay to feel the full spectrum. And whatever feeling it looks like for you too, right?
hmm. Yeah,
There's
I mean,
not one way to do this or a right way to do this. Yeah.
yeah, I think my philosophy on that is like, emotions kind of get a bad rap, especially with men, but it's like this emotion, whatever the emotion is, can be very educational. It's trying to show you that something's going on. And I know as a man, just from like in my personal life, some of the emotions, like I've had some of my biggest sort of periods of growth or effort, let's say, when there were negative emotions, like an anger or whatever. And it's like, but that thing is like, man, using your emotions to benefit you is like a whole nother ball game. That's a whole nother lesson, because a lot of times I think people break down when they feel these emotions because they don't know how to react when they feel them, because they avoid them, or they haven't felt them before, or it's uncomfortable, or whatever it is. But it's like, yeah, man, I definitely agree that the emotions are there to try to indicate to you that something is something's wrong, or something's not right, or something needs attention, or whatever. And yeah, I think too, emotions. I think people are scared of emotions, but it's like, if you really think about it, emotions have never really harmed somebody. It's like the action that follows the emotion that harms somebody. You know, if
Mhm.
somebody gets in a rage or whatever, it's like, I mean, that's not healthy probably internally for them, but it's like what they choose to do with that emotion is whether or not is on the outside world a good thing or a bad thing. So yeah, I don't know. I think being aware of the emotions, being able to sit with the emotions, but also to choosing your reaction to the emotion that you feel. I think that's a huge thing. And that's not just for men. That's for everybody, because, you know, being reactive, I don't think is good for anybody. Um, you know, those kind of situations. But listen, man, I know you got to get out of here. This has been a great conversation. Did we cover everything that you kind of wanted to cover? I know we only have a couple minutes left.
I think so. I mean, yeah, we talked about a lot of cool stuff. I loved this conversation. So thank you.
All right, perfect. I'm gonna stop the video. I'll explain to you about the uploading and all that good stuff. But I definitely appreciate your time here. Appreciate your insight, and can't wait to listen to it again.
Me too. Thank you, Cody.
Thanks. Hey, listen, guys, I really appreciate you tuning in today. If you enjoyed this podcast, if you found it useful or beneficial, you can subscribe, follow, interact, and see more content at Pure Wisdom Podcast. This is all social medias: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Rumble, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Google and Apple Podcast. Again, we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.